Um, just 1 second. Okay. Can everybody see my slide and hopefully just my slide? Awesome. Cool. I was have to ask that. It's a little awkward. Okay, so hi everybody. I'm Maria. I'm a climate justice organizer with the Trade Justice Education Fund. I'm actually a student intern. I came on last year working on COVID-19 vaccine patent waivers. That was a campaign we had at the World Trade Organization. Now I'm working on this one for climate. I asked for a few minutes on the agenda today to give you a quick update about how fossil fuel companies are using trade agreements to undermine climate action and how you can help to eliminate that threat. So modern trade agreements are hundreds, if not thousands of pages long, and they set a very wide range of rules for the global economy, covering not just tariffs, but medicine patents, food safety standards, banking regulations, government purchasing preferences, internet policy, you name it. At their core, these agreements are about removing barriers to trade and establishing new rights for big corporations. The right to move goods across borders, the right to invest across borders, and guaranteed market access for goods and services. To most people, these sound like very reasonable and very boring things on their face, but we have to remember that coal, oil, and gas are all goods moved across borders, as we know, and fossil fuel companies are international companies that invest across borders. So if we want to stop a pipeline or an export terminal from being built, or prevent companies from fracking, or ban the sale of certain plastic-made goods, any of that can be considered a violation of a company's trade agreement right and thus subject to attack. And that is exactly what's happening. So the most pressing example here is that in July, the company TC Energy, often better known as TransCanada, formally announced that it is launching a $15 billion suit under NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, because the United States refused to grant the company operating permits for the Keystone XL pipeline. That $15 billion that TC Energy is demanding doesn't just cover the company's initial investment into pipeline infrastructure, but also its loss of future expected profits. Let that sink in for a second. So if taxpayers are required to pay the fossil fuel industry for their lost future profits, potential profits, every time that climate activists manage to stop them from polluting, large-scale policies that limit carbon emissions that we need to survive will become much, much harder to enact. The Keystone case is unfortunately just one of over 1,100 active trade cases around the world right now in these tribunals. This map shows just a handful of them. Not all have to do with climate, but fossil fuel companies bring more cases than any other industry, and more than 1 in 3 of all new cases over the last decade has targeted policies affecting oil and gas extraction, mining, or power plants. So this little dot of Lone Pine versus Canada represents a US company that's demanding over $100 million because the province of Quebec banned fracking under the St. Lawrence River. Another one over here that I can't highlight, but is also on this map, sorry, someone's outside my window, is a coal-fired power plant that had its operating permits denied in Germany and used a trade challenge to get those permits reinstated. We suspect they also want an undisclosed secret payout from German taxpayers. And then one down here that's been in the news a lot lately is an Ecuadorian court order that required Chevron to pay $9.5 billion to clean up their oil spill in the Amazon and provide healthcare for affected indigenous communities. That was overturned with a demand now pending that the government pay the company instead. And the recent decision was that the leader of this indigenous nation was required to pay all of the Chevron team's legal fees back to them. And this is the Steven Donziger case that's been in the news a lot lately. He's going to prison for, I think he's a lawyer on this, possibly a journalist. But to date, corporations have won the majority of cases that have made it to a decision. The average amount awarded in each case has been $438 million, but awards have gone into the billions, and the largest amount ever claimed in a single case was over $500 billion. One key thing to know is that most of these are cases that would be laughed out of the US court system. You want us to pay you for the profits that you might have made if you didn't have to meet environmental standards. It's pretty absurd, but that's exactly what happens in these international trade tribunals at the World Bank. It's a very real threat to climate action. If governments are now expected to find literally trillions of dollars to pay corporations to compensate fossil fuel companies for their lost expected profits, it's going to make it that much more difficult for rich countries like the US to make the major greenhouse gas reductions we need on the timescale we need to make them on. Lower and middle income countries with less money to burn may find that it's too difficult to rein in fossil fuel companies at all. They don't have that money lying around, but also importantly, just this threat of massive legal fees, essentially, and massive payouts means that this is a huge disincentive to passing any kind of legislation. It's a big fear factor, basically. At a minimum, allowing these trade attacks to move forward would mean massive amounts of money wasted on payouts to polluters rather than invested in things like green energy, public transportation, disaster relief, and a just transition. The solution to this problem is very simple. We need to make our climate policies immune to trade attacks. So first, we need to eliminate what's called investor-state dispute settlement, or ISDS. This is the name for the system under which transnational corporations can individually challenge government policies as a trade violation in international tribunals. Joe Biden doesn't like that system. Even Donald Trump didn't like that system. Trade justice activists around the world have made a lot of headway against ISDS in recent years. Our goal is to eliminate it. So the first step is preventing corporations from directly challenging climate policies via trade agreements. And the other step is preventing them from getting governments to challenge each other's climate policies. So right now, the US is able to challenge India, for example, over its solar program incentives, and then the same thing can happen in reverse. We don't have time anymore for that strategy of handling WTO disputes that relate to climate. We need what's called a peace clause at the World Trade Organization, under which all countries agree that trade challenges over climate policies are off the table. There's already a WTO peace clause in place for food security measures in the event of famine. Extending that precedent to climate is a no-brainer. So our two steps here are to eliminate ISDS and enact a climate peace clause at the WTO. Those are the two goals of this campaign. To close, let me say that the reason I'm here today is we have a real opportunity to create some action on this right now. Many of the key players in the Biden administration, including the president himself and our new trade representative, Catherine Tai, have the right inclinations on this. The European Union is also starting to get upset about all the financial hits they've been taking under these deals recently. Most other countries around the world were bullied into signing these deals by the US and the EU in the first place. So momentum is on our side. More so, this isn't something that needs approval by Congress. Unfortunately, all of this happens in a completely undemocratic system. So we can absolutely win here with public pressure. The challenge we face is that even among climate activists, most people still don't know that this issue even exists. So we're trying to implement what's called the vampire strategy to drag this bloodsucker out of the shadows and expose it to the light of day. Please excuse the corny Halloween metaphor. But I'm asking for your help in two ways. So first, we're circulating an organizational sign-on letter to the president about this issue at the end of the year. We would really appreciate it if your group would consider signing on. And second, we have a social media toolkit with template Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram posts about this issue. We'd love for your group and really for each of you as individuals to post some information about this issue to your social accounts. Taking just those two steps would help us out a lot. I don't know if we have time for questions because we have a very busy agenda tonight, but here's my contact info if anyone wants to get in touch. I'm going to drop that toolkit link in the chat. Please follow us on social media. And if there is time, I'm happy to take questions right now. Thank you so much.
There is time for a few questions if anyone has any. Thank you, Maria.
Awesome.
Hey, this is Jeannie. I will ask you a question. I'm sorry, I tuned in a little bit late. I'm on the management team, the leadership team of our group and do communications. And I'm kind of curious to ask you, is any of this coming to table for discussion during the COP26 that's going on right now?
That is an excellent question. I actually have not seen the agenda for what's being discussed completely. I know that it has to be on the table. I haven't really been following that super closely, but I'm sure that it has to be being discussed because I know that like Mexico just pulled out of they've had a NAFTA dispute recently about privatizing their national power plants. And so that has been a big source of tension and a big development in the ISDS case precedent for North America. And Canada wants to do the same thing. So I think it has to be discussed, but that's a really great question.
Thank you
Sorry,
so
I
much.
don't know more. Yeah.
Thank you for your presentation too. I did not know the first thing about this topic.
Thank you.
I have a question. Hi, Maria. This is really interesting. I'm Deirdre. I'm wondering, are there other organizations working on this as well? Like 350? I know they're doing a lot around divestment. I'm just wondering if they're also helping on this.
Yeah, totally. So our national letter, I work through the Washington Fair Trade Coalition in Seattle. We also have counterparts in New York and California who are on our team on this. And my big boss in Washington, D.C., who drafted this letter, worked with the National Sierra Club policy staff. We have a lot of 350 groups signed on, and my role on this is to basically talk to groups like yours and to local 350 chapters and sometimes Extinction Rebellion, a lot of Sunrise groups and campus student groups about this and try and get as much like kind of grassroots level information and sign-ons as possible. So yeah, we have a lot of 350 groups across the upper Midwest and a couple, I think a couple in Massachusetts so far on this. Yeah.
I'm happy to share your information with the UMass Dartmouth Sunrise Group.
I would love that. Thank you. I think I've emailed them and I don't think I've heard back. So that would be lovely. Thanks so much, Deirdre.
Are we all in agreement that we add our name to the letter? Yes, awesome. Yeah. Maria, thank you so much for this presentation. This was fascinating and deeply distressing. I find it horrifying that not only have we subsidized these companies for years through our tax dollars, but now when we say we're done, they want us to pay them for their loss in profit, future profits. That's just insanity. So
Yeah, it's so messed up. It makes me really angry. Sorry, it's kind of a downer, but thank you all so much for signing on. That's really exciting. Woo.
great.
Okay.
Is there anything else you need from us for the sign on, or will you add our name?
I will email you a link to the way you can do that, and then it will show up on our letter. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, Maria.
Have a great night.
You too.
Bye.
So next on our agenda is to update on our campaigns and other news, but I also see that Senator Pacheco is on the call. Senator Pacheco, would you rather go now or would you rather wait till 8:10?
He's muted. He's
Yeah, I
muted.
know.
Oh, there I am. Okay, can you hear me?
We can. Thank you for
Yes, I
coming.
can wait. We can
Okay.
wait. All right.
Okay. We don't want to waste your time. So thank you so much for coming. All
You're
right.
welcome.
So some updates on our campaigns. 100% committed campaign. I'm excited to share, like I did in the email, that we have another partner. So our partner is Twisted Treats and Savories. Sonia Bradford runs a home bakery business in Dartmouth. She's run it for 20 years, and I happened upon it on Instagram when I was looking around for birthday cupcakes for my daughter, She uses all sustainable packaging, biodegradable or compostable, and all organic ingredients. And anyway, she has solar panels on her home and is very excited about sharing the information about the 100% committed campaign with other businesses. So this is our 18th sign on to the campaign, which is very exciting. And Anne and I have a few that we're working on behind the scenes. So stay tuned for that, but fingers crossed we land a whale soon. That's the goal, a big one. And anyone is welcome to help on the 100% committed campaign. So let me know if you know of a business and you want more information on how to contact them and ask them to join our campaign to be 100% renewable by 2030. Legislation update, we've had a couple phone banks with the Climate Exchange Group for the Green Future Act recently, and there's another phone bank on Wednesday the 3rd. It's on our agenda if you want to sign up to do that, and it's an hour long. I think this will be like my 6th or 7th that I'm doing. It's starting to really make a difference. We are also trying to have lobby meetings for the Green Future Act with Climate Exchange for Representative Strauss and Representative Schmid. And we're still working on both of those. So Deidre and I have both tried calling Strauss's office in the last couple of weeks and have made contact, but have not yet had the agreement to a meeting. So, but please, if you live in either Representative Strauss or Representative Schmid's districts, please continue to call them and ask them to co-sponsor the Green Future Act, because neither one has done so yet. And they need some more pressure, apparently. Mary Lou and I hosted a table at Kids Fest on October 9th, and it was highly successful. We talked about it at the last meeting, but just to reiterate, it was so fun. We had an awesome time, and it was a great visibility opportunity. Next visibility opportunity is this Sunday, the 7th at Marsh Island. And again, in the agenda, there's a link to RSVP. Mary Lou is doing a brand audit and beach cleanup. Mary Lou, you want to say a few words about that?
Sure. So because we have another campaign going on, it's a mail back to PepsiCo. We could identify the biggest polluter at Marsh Island. We'll do that. But so the cleanup is from 1 to 3:30, and we're going to enter via Tabor Street in Fairhaven. But what we're going to do is we're combining. So we're going to have the cleanup, and then we're going to have a big mail back campaign, Frito-Lay chip bags, because we find so many of them on our cleanups, and they're single use. So we have out the letter, Laura, to everyone about the mail back. Yes. Yes. Okay, good. Okay. So we're sending these chip bags one at a time to PepsiCo, to their sustainability chief, because we want to get past all this greenwashing nonsense. You know, they talk about being more sustainable, but you know, in compostable packaging, well, where is it going to be composted, and how are you going to do that, and how are you going to retrieve all this stuff? So anyway, we're calling them out on that. And for November 7th and 8th, we're going to mail back one chip bag in each envelope on those 2 days. And we've connected with people from California, Ohio, all around the country. And so if you need any more information on that, I can help you with that. But I'm bringing in a ton of envelopes and stamps, and I'm really into this. So we're doing it in coordination with a Colorado group who are just as feisty as we are. And yeah, it should be great. So we need lots of people and lots of chip bags. That's, yeah.
Yeah, so come out. Should be
Yeah.
fun.
Definitely. I always bake.
It's true. We also have a Zoom this Thursday. I don't think it applies necessarily to anyone here, but if you know anybody elsewhere in the state who's a climate reality leader, this may apply to you actually, Rick. You might want to come on Thursday. we're co-hosting an event with the Boston chapter to try and encourage more chapters in Massachusetts. There are actually 12 chapters in the state of New York, and they have these Saturday morning coalition calls where they have 1 or 2 people from every chapter who get together, and then they make these plans to do these big actions with all the chapters across the state. And here in Massachusetts, we have 2 chapters. We have Boston and we have South Coast, and that's it. So we are hosting a webinar on Thursday, and Chris Gaynor from Climate Reality was going to send it out to all the newly trained climate reality leaders, especially to encourage them to attend, because we're really hoping to at least have a Western chapter and a Central Mass chapter form, if not also a Cape Cod chapter and a North Shore or South Shore. I don't know. I mean, I think that it's really powerful to have regional chapters because you can do local work, but then you can collaborate statewide with other chapters. And that's what we're really hoping to achieve the way that they have in New York State. So fingers crossed, we get a good crowd of new chapter climate reality leaders from all over the state for that event. Our no idling campaign update is basically just that we are still working on trying to get a city councilor to take a meeting with us to talk about installing permanent signage on the Fairhaven New Bedford Bridge. So if any of you live in New Bedford, which I do not, and I don't actually know if any of you live in New Bedford, honestly. I don't think anybody here does, actually. But if you know anyone who lives in New Bedford, if you can have them call their city councilor, their citywide city councilors, and ask them if they'd be willing to meet with some of us about the bridge. It's frustrating that the bridge is technically in New Bedford because the impact of the idling on the bridge is not going to just stay in New Bedford. So I get a little frustrated about this because I'm not that far from the bridge, and you know, there's a playground right next to the bridge that my kids love to go to, and that's, you know, the air quality can't be good at that playground given all the idling that happens on that bridge. So anyway, this is something that has been on my mind for a long time, and I know it's been on a lot of other people's minds, and I'd really like to achieve signage on the bridge that makes it clear that we're not okay with idling. Anybody have any thoughts on any of those? Any ideas? Any questions?
Laura, Jeannie, do we have anything in writing to send the people in New Bedford that we're trying to get to help us? Or should I come up with some little thing?
It'd be great if you came up with something. So far, I've Eben and I, who does live in New Bedford, he and I have sent emails to the city councilor whose ward includes the bridge, and then we also sent emails to the city councilors who are for the whole city. But I also know there's an election going on right now, so maybe they're all really busy with that election. So
Right.
maybe after the election, they'll be more likely to answer our emails. But yeah, we could definitely use some communications
Okay.
to make it easier.
Can you, yeah, I've been a little busy. Can you forward those to me?
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Any other questions or thoughts or ideas from anybody else about
Yeah,
any of that?
I have a question, Laura. I wonder if there's a way to sort of broaden that beyond that single bridge, because this happens everywhere. I mean, I live on Cape Cod, and I don't need to tell you what happens on weekends during the summer and even into the fall. I mean, the traffic can be stopped for miles, and you know, people are just, their cars just idling, and there's got to be other examples in the state too. Going into Boston in the morning, you know. When I periodically have to drive into Boston from the Cape. I mean, it's a nightmare coming from the south, you know, into the city. So there's a lot of opportunities for, you know, people to just shut off their cars, you know, when they're not going anywhere.
Yeah, you know, I brought it up at one of our previous meetings, but Maura Healy, the attorney general, actually she sued the New Bedford bus company, Tremblay's, for excessive idling. They were leaving their buses on to keep kids warm, and they're going to have to pay, I think it's something like $100,000 to local parks to plant more trees. is kind of their payment, their consequence for the idling. And I wanted to call in the other day. I didn't get a chance to because I was busy, but I want to ask her, what else can we do in this state to enforce that anti-idling law? And where else can we try to help reduce idling and make it clear that it's not okay? So I do think there are other opportunities, and we can keep talking about this. We tried yard signs, and people stole them. So I have a beautiful yard sign that says no idling, climate reality, but they weren't very successful. The other thing I wanted to mention is that there is an event at the New Bedford Public Library on November 13th. And I believe it's a community-wide event. Is that right, Mary Lou? And
Yeah, so it's a wellness walk, but it's also a celebration of the New Bedford parks. But anybody that has to do with health. And so the reason that Michelle reached out to me was because, health of the climate, right? So she'd love to have our table there.
yeah, and actually, Rebecca Hawthorne from New Bedford, the Buttonwood Park Zoo, she has these little keychains that they gave out at one point that say like "Don't idle" or something like that. They have like a cute little car on them, and they say something about not idling. So we could give those out at that table, and we could specifically talk about not idling your car. So that would be great. Is anyone free to hang out at a table with me on November 13th in downtown New Bedford? Tabling is actually awesome. I've really enjoyed it. You get to really talk to a lot of people. It's a great way to communicate about the climate crisis. Anybody free on Saturday the 13th?
And it's only from 11 to technically it's 3, but she said you can leave at 2. So it's really only from 11 to 2, if that helps anybody. I'm in New York, sorry. I would be there with you.
In what is the purpose again of that table?
So it's visibility. Anytime we have a table that says climate reality, Massachusetts South Coast, we are reminding people that the climate crisis exists. I was just actually talking about this in our chapter leadership call. All the chapter chairs get together once a month to talk. And we were talking about the value of tabling and being out there in the public. And people can ask you questions, and then you can share information. We can have information there about legislation that is in the State House, and we can have information about anti-idling. And since it's a health event, that's definitely makes sense. We can have our beautiful parachute out that the kids all put their handprints on, and we can have other kids fit their handprints in between things because there is still a little bit of space. We can have a raffle again. So it's about visibility. It's about recruiting new members. So, we might meet people who are like that. I'm really interested in fighting the climate crisis too. Can I join your group? It's an open group. Anyone can join. Anyone can come to our chapter meetings. So that's what it's about.
I can do that on the 13th.
Great, Rick. I will email you more details.
Okay.
Thank you.
And that's what we said from 11 to 3. Is that what you said?
11 to 2.
Yes.
Okay, I'm just putting it in my calendar now. So it's 11 to 2.
Yeah,
All right.
technically you can leave it too.
Okay, well, and just putting it. in
We'll
my
leave it too.
calendar. Okay. All right.
You'll leave it too.
Can you send me some information about it too, please?
Absolutely, Tracy. That would be great.
Thank you.
Gotta make myself a note.
Could I say something quick?
Yeah.
I just, the idling and the noise thing, of course, is like annoying. But I think the real point is, think when we're on the Mass Pike, or you're on 287, somewhere in the Northeast, wherever, and you're in miles and miles of traffic and everybody's idling. It's not just the smog or the air quality issue. It's like, think about the amount of fuel that is being used just to have people go nowhere. That's, I think, and that's where an electric car thing of it coming into effect when that idling thing happens is like a real issue. Yeah, I just wanted to make mention quick. Thanks.
Absolutely. And, people still have the impression that you can idle, that it takes more fuel to like turn your car back on, turn it off and turn it back on. And that's not even true anymore. It's not true at all. Like 10 seconds of idling wastes more gas than turning it off and turning it back on. It's like, cars are so much more efficient now. I've been hitting the New Bedford Bridge every morning coming back from the gym. And I sit there and I turn my car off and I have a book on the passenger seat and I turn on my light and I just read my book and it's fine. It's just fine. Anybody else have thoughts about any of those? I'm gonna let Senator Pacheco share about the Building Justice with Jobs Act in a minute. All right, then we will move on. So thank you so much for coming tonight, Senator Pacheco. Climate reality leader as well, trained early on with Al Gore. We're happy to have you here. And tonight is going to share about the Building Justice with Jobs Act. Let us know kind of what it's all about, where it is in the State House, and how we can help. And I'm going to put the fact sheet in the chat. And if you want to share your screen, you can, but if you just want to talk to us, that's great too.
Well, first of all, let me just thank you very, very much, Laura, for all of your leadership, making sure that the Climate Reality Project's members and leaders are actually reaching out to citizens all across the world. And this is a crucial time for us with COP26 going on, and climate reality leaders that are doing what you are doing and talking with literally, millions of people through the presentations that they're providing, the conversation and the engagement that is taking place. And so let me just begin by thanking you for your leadership and for everyone that is on the call, on the Zoom rather, so that we can continue to engage. The Building Justice with Jobs is a piece of legislation that I've been working with Mass Renews and New England Renews, an organization that is working in all of the Northeast part of the United States, and working and reaching out to a number of us in various organizations like 350.org, and reaching out to some of the climate reality leaders, that are involved in the legislature. And let me just go over it, very briefly, how Building Justice with Jobs actually works, at least the proposal that we'd like to see enacted into law. Building Justice with Jobs is legislation designed to retrofit 100,000 Massachusetts homes each year for the next 10 years, for a total of 1 million homes over a 10-year period, doing a deep dive into retrofitting homes in environmental justice communities with significant populations of disenfranchised Massachusetts residents. There are other proposals that will complement what we're doing here as well, talking about the built environment in general. So commercial buildings, industrial buildings, etc. But we're in this bill talking primarily about residential, properties in the Commonwealth. So the plan actually prioritizes retrofitting homes in environmental justice areas with significant populations of disenfranchised Massachusetts residents, as I said. The goal of retrofitting 100,000 Massachusetts homes each year for the next 10 years was explicitly included in the administration's 2050 decarbonization plan. So it wasn't legislatively mandated. It was actually the executive branch that put this forward as one of their pathways to achieving net zero by 2050. It's admirable, except for one thing: they're not doing it. They're not getting it done. The administration's 2050 decarbonization plan came out even before the new emissions reduction mandates in the next gen roadmap were codified, or the net zero by 2050 bill. This legislation is part of a federal and regional effort with a national platform with Thrive Act, filed by US Senator Ed Markey, and state level legislation filed throughout our region. This legislation is also designed to create jobs, to generate savings in the very environmental justice communities that need it most. Not only the energy savings and carbon reductions, but also the creation of green jobs. It proactively incorporates input from the Massachusetts Clean Energy Center, Mass CEC. This legislation avoids pinning the plan for retrofit decision-making on Mass Save, which would be involved in the process by allowing Mass Save to participate. They would be able to bid in for work, but would no longer be the sole entity in charge of the Commonwealth's retrofitting effort. If the existing approach continues, we risk a major disconnect between the state's well-established need for robust retrofitting efforts and the less ambitious goal we have seen put forth by Mass Save program administrators. In particular, those administrators are, as you know, mostly utilities. This legislation is 100% compatible with other policy-based solutions that have been offered by the legislature and by the administration. The so-called recently announced Clean Heat Commission, for example, is one initiative that would be very consistent with the goals and recommendations under the Building Justice with Jobs. Critically, this legislation gives Mass CEC the authority to establish programs and entities designed to provide funding for the Building Justice with Jobs plan, including but not limited to the creation of a green bank to provide capital investments for the Building Justice with Jobs plan, and to a program designed to use financial savings derived from increased energy efficiency to finance the Building Justice with Jobs plan. I know there's a lot of individuals out there that are very familiar with what happens, for example, in a lot of our school systems, a lot of public entities, where entities like a Siemens or other major companies come in and they offer communities what is called an ESCO, where they actually do a contract. They limit the cost of future costs of energy to what the present bills are, and they actually pay for the construction and the upgrades with the savings that they accrue, and that's how the company gets paid. So it's just a unique financing mechanism. And under Building Justice with Jobs, the Mass CEC would be given the authority to establish a green bank or an institution like a energy savings contract loan initiative, where they would use seed money, put it out there on the street, do some of these projects, and the savings that accrue as a result of doing the projects come back to the Mass CEC. essentially financing retrofits by leveraging future bill savings from reduced energy use. So the Building Justice with Jobs Task Force, which is created under the bill, would include non-administrative appointees, including individuals chosen by the Low Income Energy Affordability Network and the Greater Boston Labor Council, as well as individuals chosen by the administration from vital communities, separate appointees from nonprofits involved in affordable housing and labor, housing displacement prevention and tenant rights, urban environmental issues and public health, rural environmental issues and public health, environmental justice communities, and building accessibility for people with disabilities. That would also be a significant component of this legislation. We need building justice with jobs because according to the most recent data, the asthma capitals out there, the annual report of 2021 from the Asthma and Allergy Foundation of America, which lists the top 100 worst cities to live with asthma. Massachusetts has more cities in the top 20 than any other state in America, believe it or not. Worcester is number 11. Springfield is number 12. Boston is number 18. As always, disenfranchised communities with higher proportions of low income and ethnic minority populations have been bearing the brunt of the statewide emissions crisis. These populations have similarly endured more significant economic hardship brought on by COVID-19 compared to other communities in our state as well. According to a recent article in the Boston Globe, and again, I remind you that the program actually started with the administration to look at doing deep dive on energy efficiency. And they were looking at doing 100,000 homes a year. The Globe just reported only 461 homes were converted to electric heat last year. So that's pretty sad. This past July, Mass Save program administrators, which are the utilities, announced their 3-year plan to address this glaring gap in installing 17,000 heat pumps year 1 before rising to 27,000 per year in year 3, with roughly half of those existing systems still supplementing fossil fuel heat. Mass Save's plan to merely add modern thermostats or additional insulation and air sealing in many residents would fail to treat over 50% of the emissions from each of the residences. Despite definitive legislative action and administrative ambition to reduce emissions, this is unfortunately the type of progress or existing retrofitting entities envision for the Commonwealth. So we need to have this legislative action so we can get going and actually get it done. It is in no small part the product of retrofitting program financed by entities with fundamental conflicts due to the financial interests of publicly traded corporations they represent. So these utilities are not moving as quickly as they should because, they are the ones imposing regulations on themselves and trying to move people off of, fossil fuel heat, gas heat, oil heat, etc., switching out those fossil fuel related furnaces and getting to a point where they're installing heat pumps and doing complete retrofits of the homes with insulation, new windows, all the things that make sense. So more generally, though, it is the product of a statewide retrofitting effort in the absence of adequate and accountable leadership. And it is a serious problem, what is taking place right now. So that's why we need to get this Building Justice with Jobs bill done. We need to actually eliminate the waste in the energy system. Countless numbers of homes are using way more energy than they even need, because a lot of that energy and a lot of the heat or air conditioning is just going right out the walls or right out the windows. There's no insulation, especially in these disenfranchised communities. So that's what this is about, Laura, and I'll be glad to answer any questions that people have. It's, had a hearing. We had a tremendous turnout at the hearing. A lot of people are calling their legislators. We certainly would appreciate any phone calls to legislators in the southeast part of the state, making sure they're aware of it. We can share a fact sheet with you on this. And Scott from my office will follow up with you, Laura, and I know you will follow up with all the leaders out there and people that care about doing everything we can in this climate emergency. So thank you very much, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
I just
you.
have one comment about, I heard you had mentioned that one of the things the utility companies do is these setback thermostats. And I have had two plumbers, one up when I lived near Boston that I used for several years, and one down here, as well as a builder, tell me that those setback thermostats are not effective. In fact, they waste energy, because the high efficiency furnaces that you have now, what happens is once if you set like temperature down to whatever 58 degrees when you go to bed at night, and then turn it on in the morning again, it takes more energy to reheat the house than if you had just left it at a constant temperature all the time. So the three different independent people have all said the same thing to me, and they said you're better off just leaving your house at whatever temperature you're comfortable at, in the winter, and just leaving it there and not varying the temperature up and down, because it wastes more energy than it saves.
Yeah, well, I'm not an expert on that piece of it, but I can tell you that as Laura just referenced, relative to idling, sometimes some of the information that we're getting is not correct as well. So we can get you that information. The bottom line, though, is if people are continuing to use gas and oil furnaces, even though they're high efficiency, they're still using fossil fuels. And we can get people switched over to heat pumps, especially if you're doing the investment in the home, to ensure that all the other things that need to be done get done. Make sure that there's an updated plan on insulation, making sure the windows are appropriate and they're maintaining the heat or air conditioning inside the property, upgrading the HVAC systems in general, the plumbing, the plumbing fixtures in a home in terms of water savings. There's a whole list of things that can be done, and people just don't have the resources to do it up front. The state government partners with them, and there's a way for them to have the investment put forth into their homes, upgrade their homes, get off of fossil fuels, and save money on the energy bill, and create thousands upon thousands of jobs. That's what this bill is really all about.
I see in looking at the at the bill that it's in the telecommunications, utilities and energy committee, like a lot of other bills about climate. And I also see that most of our reps and senators here on the South Coast have not yet co-sponsored. So this is an opportunity. I see that Cabral has co-sponsored the bill, but and Doherty, but I don't see Strauss on this list for the representatives. So there's some people we can definitely be calling to.
Yeah, and it makes a big difference when the personal calls come in and people understand that you know about the bill and what the bill can do, and you're asking them to take some action on it. It's very powerful.
Great. Are you doing any phone banking, or do you have any materials that we should be using to reach out?
We can get that to you, Laura.
Okay, that'd be great. Yeah, and then I can share that out.
And any phone banking on it would be great. In particular, when if you took a look at this bill and maybe a couple of others that are out there, especially during these couple of climate weeks, right, where we've got COP26 going on, and there's increased focus on the mainstream media, although not all positive, about what we ought to be doing. It's a great opportunity to do that.
We only have a few more minutes, but Thomas had a good question in the chat. What about rental properties? Is there a way to help people in the state who rent to, benefit from this program, have more efficient?
Well, if the person that owns the home, right, is getting the work done on it, it will absolutely help the renters, because many of the renters are paying for the energy bill. The 9 times out of 10, the landlord is not providing it, and so this would bring about a good outcome for a lot of folks, and that's why we focus in on the environmental justice communities as well. And we're talking with community leaders in those communities, talking about other strategies that could be utilized relative to loan programs and those types of things. But we're talking mostly about the owners of the property, because that's where the infrastructure improvements are going to be made in partnership with the owners of the property. But if whoever asked the question is referencing the fact that there needs to be some way to have some pass-through savings to make sure the renters share, that's one of the goals of the bill.
Great. Thank you so much for the time that you took to come and chat with us tonight. And I'll be sure to share out whatever resources I get from your office about this.
Well, I appreciate you adjusting the time. I just landed here in Tampa for a national conference of state legislators, and just wasn't going to make the 7:30 time slot before I checked into my hotel. And as Scott can tell you, I'm a technologically challenged senator, so, but we got it done, and I'm pleased that you are willing to do some work on this. That's what we need to do to get it done. We're going to be in the next week or so, we're going to be taking a lot of ARPA funds and investing ARPA funds on behalf of the Commonwealth. I, for one, put forth a letter this past week, and it should be hitting the press any day now, actually arguing for some $2 billion of those ARPA funds to go into cutting emissions in the built environment. Unfortunately, I don't see that type of bold action in the plan that just came out of the House. And I'm hearing that we may not see that type of bold action from the leadership in the Senate. That's very unfortunate, because this is a once in a generation type of investment that's here with the ARPA funds. And instead of doing a myriad of local projects here and there that are politically good, but they don't do what we need to do to really move the ball down the field to get that touchdown here that we could be doing. We could really significantly change the outcome of this game if we do the right thing. And so the more phone calls that are going into people and letting them know that you care about climate, you want some action done, and here's one of the bills that you want to see passed into law, the more opportunity there is. And also working with maybe partner chapters, calling the members of the telecommunications, utilities, and energy committee. I think that's also, very important to let those members that ultimately have a vote on this as to whether it even comes out of committee or not, whether they will choose to do so in terms of voting for it. So thank you again.
Thank you. Great. And we like to try to end our meetings on time. So it's 8:31. We're at the end of our meeting. We have an opportunity next month to have a guest speaker from Climate Reality. There's a new director of diversity, equity, and inclusion, Jemiah Adams, and she has offered to visit chapters and talk about ways that the new DEI policy from Climate Reality can be implemented at chapters. So if everyone kind of feels like that's an okay fit, that'll be our December call, as well as updates on our campaigns. Does that sound okay? Cool. Okay. She's great. I've heard her speak at a couple of meetings so far. So moving forward this month, we've got opportunities. We have an opportunity this Wednesday for doing phone banking for the Green Future Act. I'm going to get in touch with Senator Pacheco's office to find out more about how we can support the Building Justice with Jobs Act, and script for what we should say when we call our senators, and I'll put that in the Climate Action Now app as well. And Thursday, there's a meeting to encourage more chapters in Massachusetts. Saturday the 13th, we'll be tabling, hopefully with Rick and Tracy and possibly Jeannie, who also messaged me. And then it'll be Thanksgiving, and everyone will have a wonderful, safe, happy Thanksgiving with small pockets of family, hopefully. And our December meeting will be coming right up after that.
And don't forget this Sunday.
Yes, thank you. And this Sunday, we get to be outside in the fresh air, picking up trash off the beach and sending those Frito-Lay chip bags on back to PepsiCo and saying no more. Yes, awesome. Thank you all for
Thanks.
coming. Email me anytime. It was nice to see all of you. I hope you have a great night. Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, Laura.